am Eloan Thachmere, and the sky has always felt like home. When the plane lifts, my worries stay on the ground. I walk the aisle with a soft smile, serving drinks, calming fears, and saying silent prayers for every soul on board. I believe God placed me here between earth and heaven. On this flight, the cabin lights glow warm. Feel peaceful. I whisper the Bible verse that always comforts me. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. It settles my heart like a blanket. I do not know yet that this peace will soon be tested. As the plane cruises, I glance at Bramwell Quince, the man I love. He sits near the window, watching me. I smile at him. He smiles back, but his eyes look tired. I tell myself it is nothing. Work calls and I move on. Duty first. That is how I was trained. That is how I live my faith, by serving. When the flight ends, applause fills the cabin. Feel proud. I always do after a safe landing. But deep inside, something feels off, like a loose button I cannot see. That night, I kneel by my bed and pray. I thank God for the flight, for love, for life. I ask Him to guide my steps. I sleep not knowing that my greatest test will come on the day meant for joy. I remember the day Bramwell proposed as if it were a dream. It happened right here in the air. The cabin was full. I was doing my rounds when he stood up. My heart jumped. Passengers gasped. He knelt in the aisle and held out a ring. My hand shook. He said he loved my courage, my faith, my work. He said he knew my job and would always stand by me. I said yes with tears in my eyes. That memory still burns bright, even now. After that day, life moved fast. Flights came and went. Time slipped through my fingers. I tried to balance love and duty. Some days I succeeded. Some days I failed. Bramwell started to sigh more. He would say little things like how I was always tired or always packing. I listened, but I also trusted his promise. At night, I prayed with the verse that calmed me. I believed God was holding us together. But love, I was learning, needs more than memories. Needs patience. I did not see the crack growing between us. I thought faith could cover it all. I was wrong. Christmas was close. Lights filled the streets. Music followed me everywhere. Felt hopeful. Christmas always made me believe again. Bramwell, however, grew quiet. His messages came late. His voice felt far away, even when he stood near me. I asked if he was okay. He said yes, but his eyes said no. One evening I came home after a long flight. My feet hurt. My spirit felt thin. I found Bramwell sitting alone in the dark. We talked, but our words missed each other. He said he felt unseen. I said I was trying. Neither of us shouted. That made it worse. That night, I opened my Bible and rested on my favorite verse again. I asked God to soften our hearts, not harden them. I still believed love would win. I did not know Bramwell was already planning his goodbye. Christmas morning arrived cold and bright. I wore a simple dress. I smiled at the mirror and whispered thanks to God for another day. Bramwell asked to meet me later. His voice was flat. My heart beat fast, but I trusted God. We sat across from each other. The room smelled like pine and coffee. He did not touch my hand. He said my job took too much of me. He said love should come first. He said he felt alone even when I was near. Then he ended it. No shouting. No tears from him. Just words, clean and sharp. I felt my chest break open. Still, I did not argue. I listened. I let him speak. When he left, I closed the door gently. I fell to my knees and cried, but not in anger. I cried in surrender. I whispered my verse again through tears. God, I will be still. The days after Christmas were heavy. I went to work. Smiled. I served. Inside I felt hollow. People asked questions. I gave kind answers. I did not shame Bramwell. I did not curse him. That was my choice. Night I prayed. I asked God to heal me, not to harm him. I asked for wisdom, not revenge. It was hard. Very hard. Some part of me wanted answers. Another part wanted justice. But my faith asked for something quieter. So I waited. I trusted that God was working even when I could not see it. And somewhere beyond the clouds, my story was still unfolding. Flying felt different now. I still wore my uniform, still walked the aisle, but something inside me watched from far away. Empty seats stared back at me like questions. Passengers laughed. Children waved. Life went on. I did my job well. That was my offering to God. Service even when the heart aches. During one flight, turbulence shook the plane. A woman grabbed my hand. I held her steady and told her we would be fine. As I spoke, I felt God steady me too. The verse I love came to mind, not in words, but in truth. God fights battles I cannot. At night, the silence was loud. Packed and unpacked. I prayed and waited. Bramwell did not call. I wondered if love could return, or if this pain was shaping me for something I could not yet see. Airports carry stories. Mine began to travel without me. I heard whispers from co-workers. Some said Bramwell left because I chose work over love. Others said he felt small beside my strength. None of them asked me. Chose grace. I answered softly when spoken to. I refused to paint Bramwell as a villain. He was human. So was I. One evening I saw him at the terminal. Eyes met. He looked away. I felt a sharp pull inside, but I stood still. I remembered that God asks for patience, not pride. That night, I knelt and asked God to guard my heart. I asked him to teach me what this waiting was for. The answer did not come. Only peace. I started writing letters to Bramwell. I never mailed them. In them I spoke honestly. I said I was sorry for the times I missed calls. I said I wished he had stayed to talk. I also said I forgave him. Writing helped me breathe. On one flight, a quiet man who introduced himself as Cedric Halewood boarded. He nodded politely. Nothing more. Still, something about his calm stayed with me. I did not think of love. My heart was not ready. That night, I read my Bible and rested in the same promise again, without saying it aloud. God was not done. Bramwell finally called. His voice shook. He said he felt lost. He asked if we could meet. My heart raced. I prayed before answering. We met in a small cafe near the station. The windows were fogged from the cold, and the room smelled of coffee. Bramwell sat across from me, shoulders low, eyes tired. Time had worn him down. He spoke slowly. He talked about regret, about missing what we had. But as he spoke, I realized something hard. His words were heavy with sadness, not change. He wanted comfort, not repair. He wanted relief from pain, not responsibility for it. I listened without interrupting. I did not defend myself. I did not explain my job again. I stayed kind because kindness is not weakness. It is obedience. When he paused, I spoke carefully. I told him I hoped he would find healing. I told him I wished him peace. I did not reopen the door we had closed. That door had been shut with prayer, not anger. He nodded. He did not argue. As I stood to leave, my legs trembled. My heart remembered old feelings, but my spirit stood tall. God had done quiet work in me. Outside, the air felt cold and clean. I breathed deeply. Choosing God's way often feels lonely in the moment. There is no applause. No reward you can see right away. But it leaves no mess behind. And that is how I knew I was walking the right path. Winter softened. Days grew longer. I felt stronger now, though the scar remained. I learned that healing is not loud. It grows quietly, like light before sunrise. Cedric appeared again on another flight. We spoke this time just small talk. He listened carefully. Truly listened. I noticed his gentleness, his respect. I noticed how he spoke of faith as a way of life, not a show. Nothing rushed. Nothing forced. That night, I thanked God for teaching me to wait. Somewhere ahead, I sensed a turning point. Not yet. Soon. Life moved into what I came to call the long middle. I was no longer breaking down every day. But I was not healed enough to forget. I woke up, did my work, and trusted God to carry what I could not name. I flew many routes during that season. New cities rose and fell beneath the wings. The skies stayed the same. Each landing taught me patience. Each takeoff reminded me that waiting still moves forward, even when it feels like standing still. I stayed close to God, not with loud prayers but quiet ones. I did not rush Him for answers. I let the familiar Bible passage rest inside me without speaking it. It reminded me that I was not alone, even when nothing seemed to be happening. On one flight, I noticed Cedric again, seated near the back. He greeted me with the same calm respect as before. We spoke longer this time. He asked about my work, not with pride or pity, but with care. When I spoke of faith, he listened without interrupting. He did not try to correct or impress. He simply heard me. That made me feel safe, and that surprised me. Still, I guarded my heart. I had learned that love rushed too fast can crack under its own weight. What grows slowly has time to take root. News reached me through quiet paths. Not gossip, not drama. Just small pieces of truth carried by time. Bramwell was struggling. He was not ruined. No one had punished him. Life was simply asking him to face himself. When I heard, I did not feel happy. I did not feel proud. Felt sad. I remembered the man who once knelt in an airplane aisle and promised to stand with me. I prayed for him that night, asking God to meet him where I no longer could. One evening a message came. His words were careful. He said he finally understood what he lost. He said he had confused love with attention and strength with control. He did not ask for me back. He did not ask for comfort. He only apologized. I did not answer right away. I sat still and prayed. I asked God to guide my words, not my feelings. I wanted truth without harm. When I replied, I kept it simple. I told him I forgave him. I told him I hoped he would grow whole. I did not reopen the past. I did not explain myself again. That season was complete. As I sent the message, something lifted inside me. Forgiveness felt like setting down a heavy bag I had carried for too long without knowing its weight. God's way does not erase memory. Gives memory new meaning. Cedric invited me for tea. It was daytime, in a small place near the square. People passed by the windows. Nothing was hidden. Nothing was rushed. That alone made me feel safe. We talked about simple things at first. Family, work, the places we had traveled. Then the conversation turned deeper, without effort. We spoke about calling and why faith must guide every choice. When Cedric talked about wealth, he did not boast. He spoke of it as a tool meant to serve others, never something to wear like a crown. I listened closely. I saw no hunger to impress me. No need to prove himself. When it was time to leave, he bowed his head and prayed softly. His words were careful, not loud. He thanked God for the day and asked for wisdom, not reward. Something in my heart recognized that kind of steadiness. Still, I did not rush ahead of God. I prayed for guidance, not feelings. That night, the scripture that had carried me through heartbreak came back again. Did not feel like rescue anymore. Felt like reassurance. God was still near. As weeks passed, I watched Cedric closely. Faith must be tested by time. I noticed how he stayed calm when plans changed. How he smiled when I chose work over dinner. How he listened when I spoke of my past without fear or judgment. This was new. I thanked God often, but I assumed nothing. True faith waits patiently for fruit. Cedric told me he admired me, and then he stopped. He did not add promises. He did not reach for my hand. He simply looked at me, as if giving me space to breathe. That silence stayed with me on the ride home. It felt heavy but not uncomfortable. It felt like a pause God Himself had placed there. At home, I sat by my window and watched the city lights flicker on. I thought about all the times I had rushed answers before, afraid of losing love. This time felt different. This time I was not afraid. I knelt to pray. I told God my heart was open, but my hands were empty. I told Him I did not want a love that needed to be chased or forced. I wanted something that would grow the right way, in the right time. The Bible lay open beside me. The passage that always steadied me spoke about waiting while God works ahead. It reminded me that stillness is not weakness. It is trust. As the night grew quiet, I felt peace settle in my chest. Not excitement, not certainty, just peace. I sensed that the hardest part of my journey was ending. I was no longer surviving pain. I was preparing for joy. The door was not open yet, but it was no longer locked. By spring my tears came less often. When they came, they did not scare me anymore. I was learning how to breathe again. Work became my training ground. Long flights, tired faces, sharp words from strangers who did not know my story. I answered with patience, even when my chest felt tight. I reminded myself that service is worship when done with love. One evening after a long shift, I sat alone in the crew lounge. I opened my Bible. The passage that always steadied me spoke about standing still while God moves ahead. It reminded me that I did not need to chase justice. I only needed to stay faithful. I prayed for Bramwell. Not because he deserved it, but because bitterness did not belong in my heart. Healing, I learned, is not forgetting. It is choosing peace again and again. When I stood to leave, I felt lighter. Not free yet, but moving forward. And for the first time since Christmas, I believed that my story was not ending in loss. On a flight to a neighboring country, I noticed a familiar presence again. Cedric Halewood sat by the window, calm as always. This was the 4th time in 2 months. I greeted him politely. He smiled, not surprised to see me. Something about that felt steady, not planned. During the flight we spoke softly. He told me his work required frequent travel. He helped fund hospitals and schools started by churches. He visited them often, not to control, but to learn what they truly needed. I believe money should follow God's work, he said simply. I admired that. There was no flirtation, no pressure, just understanding. Later, as I walked the aisle, turbulence shook the plane. Fear rose around me. I breathed slowly. The scripture I carry reminded me that I am not alone in storms. Strength comes when I stay calm and trust God's power. After landing, Cedric thanked me for my calm presence. He did not praise my looks. He honored my calling. That stayed with me. Bramwell reached out again. This time he asked to meet face to face. I did not answer quickly. Prayed. The verse that guides me spoke of God standing guard while his people remain at rest. Felt peace, not fear. We met in daylight in a public place. He looked different, less proud, more honest. He spoke of loneliness, of realizing he wanted love without sacrifice. He admitted that he knew my job when he proposed, but hoped I would change. I listened quietly. When he finished, I spoke with care. I told him I forgave him. I told him I was healing. I did not promise friendship. I did not reopen doors. He nodded. He looked relieved, not rejected. That mattered. As I walked away, I felt no anger chasing me. Only closure. God's way does not shame people. It allows them to see themselves clearly. That night I slept deeply. Cedric and I met for tea, again in public, again in daylight. He never rushed me. That itself was a gift. He spoke of responsibility, of leading without control, of wanting a family that served God together, not one that competed for attention. I told him my fears. I told him about Christmas. I told him I would always choose duty when lives were in my care. He did not flinch. The right love, he said gently, makes room for obedience. That sentence rested in me. Later, alone, I opened my Bible. The passage I returned to reminded me that God handles battles while his children remain steady. I realized my heart was no longer guarded by fear, but by wisdom. I was not falling. I was choosing. As another Christmas season approached, I felt something new. Readiness. Not desperation. Not excitement. Readiness. Cedric continued to appear on flights, never insisting, never arranging them around me. His work simply placed him there again and again. Consistency without pursuit. Presence without pressure. I watched how he treated staff, how he prayed quietly before meals, how he listened more than he spoke. I compared it with my past. Not with bitterness but clarity. The scripture that anchored me now felt like a promise fulfilled. God had fought for my heart while I learned to stand still. Whatever came next, I knew it would be clean. And I knew the breakthrough was close. I finally asked Cedric why I kept seeing him on my flights. He smiled, a little shy, and told me the truth. He worked as a quiet investor for faith-based hospitals and schools across countries. He traveled often to check on projects, not to command, but to listen. Flying was part of his calling, just like it was part of mine. I asked God where to go, he said. Then I go. That answer stayed with me. He was not chasing me. He was walking his path, and our paths kept crossing. That night, I prayed and thanked God for order, not coincidence. Cedric invited me to walk with him one evening. No rush, no pressure. He spoke of responsibility, of leading with humility, of wanting a wife who would walk beside him, not behind him. He said he admired my strength and my faith, but he would step back if God said no. That kind of respect scared me more than charm. I told him I needed prayer, not promises. He agreed. The verse came back to me, steady as breath. God was still fighting for me. Christmas came again. I was on leave this time. No flight. No uniform. Just quiet. Cedric asked to see me. He did not bring gifts. He brought scripture and silence. We prayed together. In that moment, peace settled deep inside me. Not excitement. Not fear. He knew. I said yes. Not to marriage yet, but to the future God was opening. The breakthrough did not feel loud. Felt right. Cedric proposed days later, simply with prayer. He asked me to keep serving, flying, obeying God. Said yes. Bramwell sent a message that Christmas. He wished me joy. I felt no pain reading it. Healing had done its work. 1 year after my heartbreak, I married Cedric on Christmas Day. I walked into marriage whole, not rescued. As we prayed, my heart rested fully in the verse that carried me through every chapter of pain and waiting. God fought for me. I was still. And love found me there,